The Trump administration releasing new updated dietary guidelines for the food pyramid, and they look nothing like we are used to seeing, literally turning the pyramid on its head. And now the pyramid, not like we're used to at all, putting whole foods and protein at the top of the list. So I think a lot of people's minds are just blown because they're like, what's going on? Why did it need to be changed? So let's just start from the beginning. Do you think it was necessary to make the changes we're seeing to the food pyramid?
It's so interesting because we know that a plant-forward diet that includes a lot of fruits and vegetables, which is on the top of this inverted pyramid, as well as lean protein, are very, very important in the diet. So whatever configuration you want to make of it, you really need to make sure there's good science-based, clear messaging to the public and resources on how to use it. Just don't put up a visual because, people can interpret that visual different ways.
Especially when that visual is, at least in some ways, opposite of what our eyes are used to seeing, regardless of what is being said. As soon as you see it, you're like, wait a minute, time out. What is this?
That is exactly correct. So, up on the top of this inverted pyramid, we have a lot of the protein-rich foods alongside of vegetables and fruits, which is terrific vegetables and fruits. Fruits, we always knew that they were really important. And you know something? The protein foods are really important, but in moderation, and let's not make one nutrient more important than the other. Protein is very important, but so are vitamins and minerals and water and fiber. So let's not, make one a superhuman nutrient when it really needs a combination of all of them.
And I think one of the things that caught people's eye, doctor, is the meat at the top. People are thinking about the messaging they've been receiving around red meat all this time. And now you're like, wait a minute.
Okay, so that's very true. So what the issue is that's why we need more education behind this just visual, because people are going to see what they want to see and eat what they want to eat. So if you see a lot of protein-rich foods, we're looking for a combination of protein-rich foods. Lean meats and lean poultry is totally fine, but so are beans and soy. And let's not just all go into one type of protein source. We got to mix it up because what's not different in this dietary guidelines as the last one is the recommendation to keep your heart unhealthy saturated fat less than 10% of your total calories. Well, if you're going to be looking at that protein group and diving into really, high fatty cuts of meat or poultry, that's going to be a really hard number for you to keep.
And now I think what a lot of parents are thinking about too, right? These guidelines, and I was reading this article, I have it here still in the New York Times, right? These guidelines, they affect guidance for what our kids are eating in school, hospitals, prisons, military bases, and then also what kind of foods and probably the prices in terms of what some people have access to with these federal assistance programs. So, yeah, but I mean, I guess most immediately parents are like, what does this mean for my child who is getting, breakfast and lunch at least at
Right.
school? Should I
Right.
be worried?
Right. Well, the beauty of the dietary guidelines are what they are for those exact programs that you just said, the school lunch program, WIC programs. And so these are guidelines for them to kind of mold their breakfast and school breakfast and lunch around them. So we got to be very, very careful that we stay to the science. So again, we got to make sure that we're having a wide variety of foods at these meals, breakfast and lunch, because for some households, that may be the two best meals they're going to have each day based upon their economic stability.
Now, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy issued these guidelines with the message of, and he said, my message is clear, eat real food, which sounds simple and sounds like maybe that's what we were trying to do before we got these new guidelines. And he's also saying to avoid ultra processed foods. Can you discuss the messaging there?
Right. Okay. So first of all, we need to identify what are health highly processed foods. You just can't throw a term out there. Let's identify what they really, really are. All foods are processed. If you wash an apple, you just processed it. So, if you're talking about processed foods, well, what is recommended when it comes to grains is whole wheat bread, whole grains, but they're processed. So we gotta make sure you understand what really processed foods are and don't eliminate good foods. I'll give you a great example. In the background information that they put up thus far, they talk about eating real foods and to have real foods first, fruits and vegetables in their natural form. Okay, then they say afterwards, but canned and frozen are also good. No, they're not also good. They are as good. Okay, and we got to make sure that make sure this is accessible for the American public to get, vegetables and fruit in the winter when they can't grow it outside, and to make sure that it's affordable. So we don't want to pin one real food in its natural form is nutritionally superior to the others because it's not necessarily true. And most importantly, right now, Americans' wallets are really hurting when they go to the grocery store.
Absolutely. And sometimes eating healthy financially, there's a barrier there because if, to your point, if we are not explaining specifically what ultra processed means, some people are like, well, I can't even afford this if I tried. So,
Right.
like this doesn't apply to me, doesn't matter to me because I can't afford X, Y, and Z.
Right. And also, we have research to tell us that when you say that you only can have foods grown in a certain way or just fresh fruits and vegetables, then people feel like, oh, they don't even want to get the frozen or the cans. And so they don't buy them. And so they end up eating less of them, which is the worst message that we can get out.
Now, what do you think the hope is here by the government to change this outlook at and advice?
It appears that their messaging is real food, but as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of good food in real food, and it still may come in a package or a frozen bag of broccoli or a can of pineapples.
Okay. And now here's another part of what was said that might have people's attention because it's January, so people are like, okay, I can be dry for the month. But thinking ahead, the guidelines rolled back previous recommendations when we're talking about alcohol consumption. So previous recommendations were to limit alcohol use to one drink or less per day. This was for women, and two drinks or less per day for men. But instead, new guidelines just advise consume less alcohol for better health. So
Well,
now you're
well,
like, well, less could be relative. Less than what? Last week, last month? What do you
right,
make of
right,
that?
absolutely. So again, here we go. We need that background information of what the definition of less is. We have more emerging research is looking at alcohol consumption. And what we're going to look at is really what is not only how much you're consuming, is how you're consuming it. That's another big player in the consumption. So more of that is going to be coming out.
Okay. And then just for maybe the people who are not keeping up with the headlines, there's feels like there's many of them happening a day at this point. But if this is someone's first time hearing it and they're like, why should I even care about this in the first place? I know how to eat. I don't need guidelines. Talk to the person who's like, why should I care?
Okay. You should care because you are what you eat. And we know when we look at the top leading causes of death among Americans, heart disease number one, certain cancers, stroke, and diabetes, those four diseases can be fought with a fork and a knife. And so it's very important that we have a healthy diet to not only give you the right energy, but also to help you fight these diseases and keep you healthy.
Now, is there anything else you think is important for people to understand, at least at this point, that I didn't ask you specifically?
I think it's very, very important for people to understand that you are a unique person and you have unique needs based upon your age, your sex, your activity level, your family history. So you should be sitting down with a registered dietitian, nutritionist that can look at all of that, put together and say, for you and what your health goals should be, we should be starting to eat like blank and give you that guidance that is specific for you. You can find a registered dietitian at eatright.org, and I'm telling you, it's going to be the best visit that you're going to make this year.
Oh, this is good. I love that. Yes, we've got like a some action items. Okay. Well, Dr. Salge Blake, this was great. This was
Oh, good.
informative. We really appreciate it taking
Thank you.
time out for us today. We hope that this information will be useful for our viewers. And I always like to say, not goodbye, but we'll talk again soon because I'm sure there will be more on this.
I bet there will be.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.